So, hello everybody, this is Bhante Joe here, and I'm just here in the shrine room at Badeka Vihari, which is the monastery I'm staying, and thought to record a short message, or short Dhamma discussion for the internet. So I thought that maybe could start with just a little bit of meditation, so we can lean forward a little bit and arch the spine, and look about 3 feet in front, and close our eyes. And can focus in on the breath. Can know when it's coming in. And know when it's going out. If we breathe in a long breath, can just know I'm breathing in a long breath. And if we breathe in a short breath, can just know I'm breathing in a short breath. And can focus in on the breath at the tip of the nose. And if notice any patterns of tension or tightness around the nose, around the face, can just let those relax. And when breathing in and out from the tip of the nose, can try to make awareness as continuous as possible. Being aware all the way through the in-breath. As the in-breath turns to the out-breath. All the way through the out-breath. And as the out-breath turns back to the in-breath again. Trying to make awareness as continuous as possible. And before we finish meditating, can spread thoughts of goodwill, wishing may all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. May they put in place the causes necessary to be happy and at ease. And we can make the mind infinite, can make it unbounded, all the way to the ends of the universe and beyond, in every dimension. May all beings all around everywhere be happy and at ease. And we can open our eyes and do a short Dhamma discussion for the internet. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. So hope that everybody's having a great day wherever it might be. And yeah, we've had, it's been a windy day, had a little, so I decided to come on in here. It's a bit of rain. And so yeah, record this video in the shrine room here. And so got a question from suttas.com a while back. It asked them if they had any questions. And one of the ones that they'd asked was, during meditation, is there any way to deal with random thoughts other than going back to the breath or focusing on a mantra? And so yeah, there's many ways that people deal with random thoughts. In the canon, the kind of Buddhist approach is generally the approach that the Buddha generally recommends is that when there's a kind of, or I shouldn't say recommends, but he says there's these means of escape, is that when there's a kind of a particular defilement coming up, then one uses the appropriate counter to that. It's like, if there's a fire with water, then that starts with wood, then one can put it out with water. If there's a fire that starts with oil, then one puts it out with kind of like chemicals or some other appropriate things. And so whatever the defilement that comes up, one wants to use the appropriate counter to it, the appropriate means to stop that defilement. And so in that sutta is kind of, it gives many, I think it gives 7 or so. Kind of if one has hatred, then the counter is metta. So if one has a random thought of anger coming up, then one can leave whatever is one's main meditation topic, unless it's metta, and kind of go and spread metta to that person, to all beings, until the feeling of hatred disappears. If one has a feeling of kind of wanting fame, then one cultivates this contemplation of impermanence. Fame in the sense of wanting status, wanting praise. This can be good when something really good happens to one and one's mind keeps rushing out to that thought about how great this was. Sometimes somebody has some really great thing happen to them that can be hard to meditate. Mind is too excited thinking about this thing. So in that case, one kind of goes to this perception of impermanence. And kind of this, whatever fame one has got, to use the word fame, whatever kind of praise one gained, that praise is going to fall away. And kind of it's subject to dissolution. So when one cultivates this, then that's the counter to this kind of thoughts that go out to praise. If one has kind of worry about something, then the counter for that is this is in different sections in the canon. Actually, asked one of our most senior monks about this the other day because I wasn't sure where this was. I wasn't sure what the Buddha recommended as a counter, but for like worry or like remorse, the counter is kind of is the breath. And so what one senior monk recommends is that when one has this like anger or worry or whatever it might be, one basically, there's a breathing pattern that's associated with that. So if one has this kind of like anxious thoughts coming up, anxiety about the future, remorse about the past, then one's breathing tends to become changed in order to facilitate these kind of emotions. So if one changes the breathing pattern, thinking, okay, I'm going to breathe in a way that's calm. How would I breathe if I was calm? And then manipulates the breath in that way, then these kind of worries or anxieties can fall away. Then there's other ones as well. So I mean, the counter for if one has lust is this perception of the unbeautiful, the foulness of the body. And this is one that the Thai forest masters really strongly recommend. It's kind of basically learning to perceive people in terms of the foul components of their body. So kind of like the skin, the blood, the flesh, the phlegm, undigested food. There's everything in the body that's very foul. So when one has this one has attraction to somebody else, to their physical form, then one learns to counter that in one's meditation by thinking of the foul nature of human bodies. Thinking kind of if there was a bunch of blood on the floor, if there was a bunch of skin on the floor, if there was a bunch of hair on the floor, it'd be something disgusting. Or one thinks about how beautiful a body is, but if a body doesn't get washed for like 1 week or 2 weeks, it becomes so bad smelling nobody can go around it. So there's all these different ways that a person can contemplate the foulness of the body until this feeling of lust calms down. And then there's kind of there's a kind of a meditation called non-delight in the entire world, and this is when one kind of gets I think it's when one gets kind of infatuated with like possessions, and kind of like fast cars or fancy houses, all these different things. And that meditation isn't explicitly spelled out in the canon, like how to do it. It just says cultivate non-delight in the entire world. But one can kind of use one's creativity, kind of cultivate, feelings and perceptions of impermanence towards these various kind of things people want. Actually, if one observes, one wants a really nice kind of BMW. And one can think about what the BMW 10 years ago was like, what the BMW 20 years ago was like. Kind of, these things will kind of become less and less appealing the older they get. So it's just going to be something that needs to renew itself. And then where is the appeal in it anyway? And kind of these things will be falling apart. One will kind of need to renew it. So one can use these various creative ways to develop a kind of a non-delight in the entire world. One can think of how suffering arises whenever one goes out to put one's weight on the kind of on these external things, put one's weight on cars or jobs. It causes these things to change, or when these things change, it causes one to become very upset. So in these various ways, one can cultivate this non-delight to these external possessions in the world. When that kind of is cultivated, then that kind of thought can fade away. Let's see here. So you got there's many. So there's actually many in that sutta. I guess probably to go over in that sutta and in the canon, to go over them all might take a while, and could run out of time. So just to kind of keep it brief, probably another common one that might come up for people a lot is this feeling of competition, kind of being unhappy when somebody beats one in some sort of competition. Kind of society can sometimes have different competitions in it, and so if one's at one's workplace and another person is getting more praise than one is, or one has a less good car than somebody else and they're getting more praise than or whatever it might be, then one learns to cultivate this attitude of mudita, and kind of learn to spread empathetic joy, feelings of happiness that this person, that all beings, wishing all beings do well, wishing that they continue with their success. And this doesn't mean necessarily that one wishes that oneself does like really terribly or anything like that. But even if one is in a situation where everybody around one is doing really well, that means that oneself is probably going to do well too. So although it might be the case that somebody gets more praise for having a better car, or maybe, after trying one's best at one's job, somebody else gets a promotion or so, that person, there's opportunities in these things. One can learn to see the opportunities in these things. That is, if one sees how another person did well, then one can go up and ask them, how did you do well? One can learn how they did well. And you can kind of think about it. If one was living in a really crime-ridden area, and people were doing really poorly there. I mean, there's a lot of drugs going on there. Maybe people very unhappy there. Then that puts oneself in danger. If one's living in a kind of very peaceful and happy area where people, might be people who are doing better than one, then also oneself is doing good, kind of being in that situation. So one can learn to practice this attitude of empathetic joy by spreading this feeling of empathetic joy, mudita, in all directions, wishing that all beings do well, that they aren't parted from the happiness they've gained. And basically cultivating the perception that another person's gain isn't one's own loss, that it doesn't have to be this zero-sum game. And kind of one learns to see kind of win-win situations in relationships with other people and become happy when they do well. So in other words, for almost every negative thought that might come up, every thought that might pull one away, there's a kind of counter to it. And what one can do is apply that counter until this random thought, random feeling, random mood, whatever it might be, goes away, then return again to one's object of meditation. One other important thing in dealing with, that the Kru Bhajans, or that the teachers teach, which is a good important point, is that in all these things, whether one just goes back to the breath, whether one does metta, whether one does all these various perceptions, is that there's an element of creativity in these meditation topics. In other words, sometimes a random thought will come up, one will try doing something one time, it'll work for a little while, then it'll stop working. And when this becomes the case, one needs to learn to approach that topic from a different angle. If one keeps trying to breathe calmly and still anxiety isn't going away, then one has to find another means. One can maybe try reasoning about that anxiety. Wait a minute, this is a delusion. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. Why am I grabbing onto this? This isn't something I need to grab onto. Or instead of trying to make the breath calm, one can try breathing in and out from a different part of the body, something like this. So one needs to be creative, learn to have various ways to approach a single solution to the problem, various ways to approach the breath, various ways to approach metta, various ways to approach mudita, various ways to approach non-delight in the entire world. And this is probably one of the reasons why in the canon, the Buddha, he basically doesn't lay out a really specific technique. He just says, do this technique. Probably many, many ways to approach it. So in this way, one's ability to stop random thoughts becomes a kind of, becomes a skill. Becomes a skill that one develops through trial and error. Becomes a skill that one develops through practice, and becomes a skill that one develops in such a way that it almost becomes a bit intuitive over time, how to deal with the various random thoughts that come up. The other important thing to add about dealing with random thoughts is that some of these things can be lifestyle based. So if one has a job, or one has a lifestyle, or one is interacting a lot with other people, doing a lot of talking for most of the day, and very little time to oneself, then that will stir up memories, that will stir up emotions, that will stir up all these things. So that lifestyle itself is a contributor. So if one can, at times, it's probably is much more difficult in a lay life than a monastic life, find times for solitude, where one basically doesn't interact with other people. Doesn't have to be like this wall, but basically one keeping to oneself. It's kind of staying in one's own space, not engaging with other people unless it's necessary. I mean, one can't maybe do that all the time as a layperson. Then that lifestyle in and of itself helps thoughts to settle down, helps random thoughts to settle down, and other ones to become more clear. So in other words, there's a lot of different ways to approach the topic of random thoughts, and basically having counters to the thoughts that come up, learning to approach them from a lot of different ways, and trying to develop a lifestyle in line with the Dhamma, trying to develop a lifestyle that the Buddha recommends. There's many recommendations in the suttas for how lay people should live, and this lifestyle in and of itself will help to make the mind more calm. so that these techniques also become more effective. So yeah, so those are some thoughts on dealing with random thoughts in meditation. So I hope that everybody has a great day, and wishing you all the best till next time.